Hi, welcome back. You're still watching the Late Edition. Now, wonder what it's like to see the world from a left-handed point of view. Well, on International Lefthanders Day on August 13, you might just get to explore that world for a day, or even today as we discuss it. International Lefthanders Day celebrates the differences and distinctiveness of left-handed individuals. This day was first celebrated by Dean R. Campbell, founder of Lefthanders International. That was in 1976. So from the 1600s, though, when left-handed people were thought of as being in cahoots with the devil, to the present day, they continue to face difficulties and challenges in accomplishing tasks. The notion of left-handedness as wrong is embedded even in our language. For example, the adjective sinister comes from the Latin sinestra, or left hand. The word left comes from lyft, which meant broken. The German words linkisch also means awkward. The Russian aspect of it, levja, is associated with being untrustworthy. So Segomotso Sebokedi-Phetlhu, the executive director of the African Lefthanders Foundation, joins us now to talk about it. So I've been through a brief history of it, Segomotso, but I just want us to explore it from a principle of equality point of view. Let's first start with the importance of international days like these to educate the public on the issues of concern. Is this day known and understood in South Africa and the rest of the continent at large?
Thanks for having me, Ausepi. So yes, indeed, it is a very important day to celebrate. I didn't know because I'm right-handed until quite recently, when a group of my friends enlightened me about their living experiences. One is almost 57 years, the founder of the African Lefthanders Foundation. And when Dean Campbell celebrated in 1976, I think he made quite a huge impact in terms of bringing to attention this issue. I've been a teacher for almost 30 years. It's something that in the classroom environment, I never thought of my learners as either left-handed or right-handed, and how that handedness gave the others more advantage in that classroom setting. So, like you said, on August the 13th, we are following on the footprints of Dean Campbell to continue to raise the issue of equality. A South African chap called Eddie Ndlovu, who's one of the ambassadors of the UN, pushing the sustainable goals. We sort of stole the theme of pushing the boundaries of equality and pushing the boundaries of possibility to make sure that we equate the issue of left-handedness as part of the universal, human rights as entrenched with the UN. So it is an important thing. And just think about it, Tsepiso. If you compare, for instance, the recent performance of Banyana and equate it to Bafana. Some years back, we never thought that women could even kick ball. And therefore, they were discriminated based on their gender. But until the equality of, even in terms of funding them and recognition came along, quite recently, they've brought glory, by being the first to reach the quarterfinals and so on.
So let me latch on to some of what you raised. The issue of equality, particularly, I want to latch on to something that you raised, particularly the issue of equality at an international level. There is a dialogue which begins tomorrow. And I want to look at how these kind of platforms mobilize political will and resources for the challenges faced by left-handed individuals, because it's not just a case of you use your left hand, but as you mentioned, it's an issue of resources. One of our colleagues here was talking about how they had to learn to be ambidextrous because, if, for instance, in a classroom, say you're sitting next to somebody who's right-handed, you're butting on, and the discomfort, etc. But the whole lot of things that are involved there that bring about stigma and discrimination.
Yes. So that is why I think, since we started as the African Lefthanders Foundation, we challenge ourselves to first find people who, other associations throughout the world who have gone through the experience of challenging the norm, from India to the UK to almost all the continents. And we were able to mobilize almost international solidarity, because there is an element of culture and ethnic bias towards the issue of left-handers. And we wanted to be more scientific, to find the best practices throughout the world. And therefore, the International Lefthanders Conference, which is the first of its kind, we are co-hosting it with another African country, Nigeria, to see that we can create a platform over the 5 days leading up to the weekend of the International Lefthanders Day, to see what is the science, what are the human rights trends, what are the experiences, what is the curriculum, educational curriculum practices, for instance, in the UK and in Australia compared to ours in South Africa. So we are looking at those to sort of record what the trends are internationally, so that we can be able to almost organize ourselves better to be able to put an agenda in the next year where we could engage with international bodies like the United Nations, UNICEF, and many other human rights organizations, including our government here, which we have already started doing. We've started looking at the curriculum statements within the basic education. And when I spoke to the TDG the other day, they thought, it's not an issue because it's not even on the curriculum. But the real impact on children, it's real. It's like telling people of disability that they don't matter when they've got lived experience. Yes.
It was actually
so that is why we have got this.
It was interesting to look at some of the studies suggesting that 70% of left-handed people who have left brain dominance when it comes to language control. And when you talk about things like curriculum, it is not then inculcated in it because it's not thought of an issue. The fact that people who are left-handed take about 4 to 5 months longer to reach puberty than their peers. So these things are not acknowledged, and therefore they are not worked into whether life skills programs or whatever it is in society to help them deal.
Yeah, so I think that is why it is important that we have a conversation, irrespective of the science or the anthropology behind this. It's something that we thought it is important just to have a conversational, approach to just having a chat and a conversation around this issue, so that we understand it better before we can really tackle it head on as a united voice across the various continents.
Just one last question. Beyond hand orientation, I believe that there were practices in the past where children would literally be forced to, or even tortured in some cases to steer them away from retaining their left use of the hand. Either you restrain the child and force them to use another hand, or then immobilize the hand that dominates, which is the left hand. Those kind of practices, do they still exist on the continent? In South Africa, do we still hear of cases like that, or is it now more acceptable?
Well, they do exist. I mean, even up to today, there are many anecdotes where parents would say you can't use that hand. It's a hand of a baboon, and so you have to fit culturally and almost come out of your situation of using your preferred hand, which sometimes is a weaker hand, to be able to also conform and so on. So, but we don't know the type of damage that we are doing when we force children to who are wired differently from you and I as right-handers to change their. So there is damage indeed, and I think it's good that South Africa is hosting the first inaugural conference to look at this thing deeper, almost to create awareness for this year and start moving in a very systematic way in dealing with laws, policies, even in the workplace, and not only in the classroom, in manufacturing, and so on, to look whether we have the tools that are designed almost like your micro ovens that are designed for right-handed, your ATMs, your scissors, and also to make sure that there's provision for those who are differently able in terms of their hand use.
Orientation, yes.